Welcome to today's video, and today's video is about fentanyl. Do you know anyone who is suffering with a fentanyl addiction? All right, it's made its round all over America, and it's just coming through our border, and it's devastating most Americans' lives, especially in New York. I'm sure on many towns across this once great country. But anyways, I want you to understand one thing is, as I read this article, I want you to see and make a comparison to maybe your drug addiction, maybe your alcohol addiction, or maybe the addiction to work, or the addiction to a new car, or the addiction to the BS of an American dream. Okay, that's all drugs. That's all an addiction, in my opinion. And today we're going to read this article by Douglas Murray from the New York Post, and it's going to talk about how the fentanyl epidemic is devastating New York. So it is very easy to find fentanyl in New York, it says, right? The drug that in 2022 alone kills nearly 110,000 Americans is really available right here on the streets of this city, he says. Over the past year, I've been investigating the spread of this lethal drug across the country, like I just said, right? Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that has the potential potency many hundreds of times that of morphine. Largely made in China, its strength means it is easy to transport huge quantities of the drug. It flows into the country mainly through Mexico. Yeah, but it's the cartels that are doing this, all right? They figured, why deal with China when we can make it ourselves? You know, that's what's going on. And one recent evening in New York, I headed over to One Point, a supervised drug injection site in Washington Heights. Now, I want you to pay particular attention to what I'm about to read, all right? So maybe you agree or disagree. Leave me a comment down below if you agree or disagree with this. The controversial facility allows addicts to shoot up in safe conditions, with staff on hand to revive users if they overdose. These safe use facilities are still in the experimental phase, with many critics as well as supporters. Where do you find yourself on what side of the line, right? Are you for it or against it? I'm against it but eventually it is a meeting place for drug addicts. So basically, in my opinion, they're allowing these people to do drugs there. And you may or may not disagree, but the point is, they're not, how would you say, attacking the cause of this drug addiction. It's not because of the person, it's because of the trauma that they have gone through, and no one's talking about the trauma. So this is never going to work, okay? And though people are not meant to deal drugs inside the facility, inevitably One Point is a focal point for people who are using the most legal drug. Hanging around outside after dark, it didn't take me long to find someone who was using fentanyl. He led me over to the park opposite to show me where people were coming to meeting dealers. So right outside the door from these places, people are still dealing with this stuff, all right? So they're out there getting drunk, and then they come over and get resuscitated, if you will, just to go back. See, they're not dealing with the trauma. They're not giving a place for these people to get dry and seek professional medical advice. You see, while I was there, I watched a steady stream of people. See what I'm saying? Including a couple pushing a stroller, going into the darkened park for one reason alone. Then, right there in the middle of the street, this man started tourniqueting his arm, getting out the needle and burning something up in a container with a lighter. Guess what it was, right? Right? Fentanyl. What was it? Fentanyl, he explained. Why are you not going to On Point to use it? He asks, right? So the point here is maybe you have issues in your life and you keep drinking and you never talk about the real problem, the trauma, the things that you're putting behind in the back burner that you're not dealing with, that you're choosing not to deal with. So what am I saying? You're going to keep making the same decisions because you're not taking care of the real problem. Whatever happened to you, abuse, neglect, or someone died in the past and you haven't dealt with it. Maybe your mom was unavailable or your dad was unavailable and you're not taking the time to treat yourself. You rather use drugs to cover it up, like some of these people here. You know, and I'm not calling you a bad person. I'm just saying this is how we all do it. I used to do this a very long time too. I used to drink for 25 years and kicking the can down the road. So I feel you. All right. And this channel is about trying to reach people like you to help you understand that you need to get to the bottom of what's ailing you, because you are the most important thing in your life and on this earth is you. So why are you doing this? He asked, right? As America has turned away from the war on drugs, many cities have sought more humane approach to dealing with addiction. And guess what? They're not working. How's your life? Is it working? Is the alcohol have control of you, or you have control of alcoholism? Do you have many hangovers? Do you do more drinking than not? Right? And do you feel bad and awful and you still keep doing it? Right? You may be drinking and it feels good for about 2 to 4 drinks, and after that you just feel worse and worse and worse. Right? You might have a problem. Okay, because that's how I used to feel when I was drinking like an idiot. All right, now I'm calling you an idiot. I was an idiot for drinking all that alcohol for 25 years. Okay, so as America turns away from the war on drugs to a more humane thing, right, or approach, it's not working. In my new documentary, he says, I explore how deep-seated the U.S. drug crisis has become. Is your drug addiction or alcohol addiction or sex addiction or P-hub addiction, is it taking its toll on you? There is hope for you. All right. You have to change you. You have to change your behaviors. You have to change the way you think. So I'm using this real live article to help you cross that bridge. All right. That you may have a problem, because we all have problems. All right. So because a whole bunch of people in there So anyways, he's talking about the documentary explores the deep-seated drug addiction, right? The crisis, because a whole bunch of people in there. Instead, he filled up the syringe and injected himself right there on the streets. Not many yards away, the blue lights of a stationary police car lit up the scene. Right in front of cops. They don't care, right? Because there's no more war on drugs. Make sure those cops don't come over here, he said as he was shooting up. They don't seem to bother. This is New York. Do people not bother with you anymore? Do people just let you be, right? You might have an addiction. You might have a problem. You see those people like these cops, they're like, there's no sense in saving them. You know, they're going to keep doing this. And maybe you're there. Maybe people feel that way about you. Yeah, he's a lost cause. She's a lost cause, right? How terrible for you. And if you feel that way, I want you to understand that you need to sit in that emotion and really deal with it before you reach for the next beer or the next joint or the next fix, whatever that fix is. My friend, you are your own worst enemy. You are your own problem. All right? Not someone because someone did this or someone did that or she left or he got me upset. It's you. Yeah, it's uncomfortable hearing this, but it's about time you hear the truth. You are the problem. I could go rob a jewelry store, it continues to say here, and a bank right now, he replied, before adding, just joking. Do you make comments like that? Oh, I want to kill myself, I'm just joking. Maybe, right? I asked him, how often do you do this? How often do you do this to yourself? Every day, he replies. Is that your answer? Every day, all the pain goes away. And guess what? This is a channel where you will hear things like this because you need to hear things like this. Because you need to take responsibility for your life. I had to, like I mentioned earlier, I drank for 25 years. I did drugs. I popped pills. I womanized. I slept with women all over. That's because we are all suffering with something. You're not alone. All right? You have to fill your life with a higher power, whatever that means to you. All right? Street drugs like fentanyl here, it's witchcraft. I made a video about it just the other day. Check it out. It's about witchcraft. It's about spirits. And call them demons if you will. It's up to you, whatever you call them, but they got a hold of you. And look at how your life is. I know how my life was. Pretty shitty. All right? Subscribe, leave me a like, because these are the things that I'm going to be talking about here because I experienced abuse, neglect, narcissistic parents. I survived all sorts of things to be here to try to help one of you out there. Okay? To the ease with which you can find these drugs is just one of the reasons why. According to the United Nations, North America has the highest opioid use of any region in the world. Maybe you have a drug dealer on speed dial. I used to have one. See how easy it was for me to get this or that, these pills, Xanax, okay? Whatever it was. I was popping pills, drinking, all sorts of stuff, okay? And maybe you have one of those people on dial-up. And it's not just in the major cities that this lethal drug can be found. Today, fentanyl is an all-American problem. Go USA, right? I recently connected with an ex-drug dealer called Torrin in his late 20s. He used to sell fentanyl and other drugs on the streets of San Francisco. He also dealt in drugs on the dark web. He talked me through how easy it is to get lethal drugs in this way. It only took the guidance of someone who knew. A few clicks of a button to be into an online drugstore like no other. Absolutely every drug was available to purchase. Some cities took pride in the purity of their products and included test strips with your delivery. How insane. Others seemed more sketchy though. But what this means is that what was once a big city problem is now a nationwide problem. So you might be thinking that, hey, this is just a me problem. No, there's plenty of your friends, co-workers, people in the gym who are suffering with drug addiction, a loneliness, narcissist abuse. All right, maybe there were abuses as a child. And if you're working for corporations, you're being abused, by the way. Okay? Torrin walked me through how he sent his drugs out to customers when he dealt. He described how he would package the drugs inside a balloon and generally double wrap them in a room away from the package. All of this to make sure that there was no scent to give the contents of the package away as it crossed America. How common is this form of drug dealing? He asked. Torrin laughed as he told me that the UPS is the biggest illicit drug delivery system in the country. Wow. And it's not just on the dark web that these lethal drugs can be found. Torrin showed me how the content of fentanyl dealers, even on social media sites, as apparently innocent as on Instagram. That's why I got off of Instagram. There's nothing but 304s and drug dealers and pimps on Instagram. I got myself off of Instagram. There's nothing but people trying to take advantage of other people. This country and this world has fallen to the wayside. And you should try to be a better person and get away from the world. Get away from people. Get away from society. Turn off your damn TV and change your life. He showed me how. If you knew the variations of words to put in, it is easy to connect to dealers. Instagram bosses try to chase this down, he explained, but the dealers always find a way around them. In Torrin's view, most of the fentanyl now arriving on American streets don't just come through Mexico, but it's also made there, like I said. Of course, it is insane that a drug of this lethality should be so easily available to Americans, to children, to everyone. But this is one of the reasons why New York health authorities last year, all right, I went to the pharmacist who stocks the spray, he says. Wow. That doesn't sound right. Let's see. But this is one of the reasons why New York's health authorities last year, stocked the pharmacies for the spray, I guess. It doesn't make sense, but I'll continue. It goes up the nose and kickstarts the brain to override and overdose. Wow. That is so terrible. Think of how much pain these people are to be doing this type of drug that is so lethal and have something so readily available to keep you from dying. Think of how much pain these people are. Think of how much pain you're in if you keep drinking alcohol or doing drugs or womanizing or sleeping around with all sorts of men. I was told that if you can get this up someone's nose before their lips go blue, you can reliably save their life. As the pharmacist near 10th Avenue told me, if you see somebody overdosing or anything, you spray it in their nose and it blocks it. Wow. Guess who the real winners are? Pharmaceutical companies. Whoever's making this, they're making buku money. Guess who they are? Right? I'll bring them back to life if they're dosing over anything. How sad. People, crazy, delusional people making billions off of people offing themselves. And it can be not just for regular users, but for people who may have no idea what they're taking. Today, fentanyl is found not just in heroin, but in cocaine and even weed. I am so glad that I am not doing drugs. I did drugs for many years. One of my favorite things was weed, and I'm glad that I'm no longer doing that because of this problem. I'm glad that I don't find myself in those situations. And that's why I try to reach out to anyone out here on YouTube to help you understand that it's not good for you. There is a different life outside of using drugs. So you might take something accidentally. You don't know you did it by accident, said the pharmacist. They put fentanyl in everything these days, which is something that this city recreational drug users should be much more aware of. All it needs is barely a speck of fentanyl to get into their drugs for somebody to overdose. A speck to overdose and die. because you don't want to deal with the real problems, the underlying problems, your abuse, your neglect, whatever you went through. Lost a puppy, or maybe a loved one died early, maybe one of your parents died early and you haven't dealt with those emotions. You're suppressing them, right? Regular users build up tolerance. In fact, a lot of fentanyl addicts I've met in the last year said they started taking the drug because their regular fix of heroin no longer gave them that high. Maybe you're sitting around trying to chase a high. How dumb. How dumb. I was there. I'm not calling you dumb. I'm just saying some of the choices we do are dumb. The heroin up to 10 bags a day. Ooh, that sounds a lot. Will keep a serious addict just above level. But for the high, they need fentanyl. It is very dangerous. It's a very dangerous game they are playing. Many people overdose when coming out of prison, or often otherwise not having used for a while and going straight back to the dose they took before. You know, most of these people that are coming out of prison and dying are men. But guess what? No one gives a shit. When their bodies had built up a greater tolerance, this is one of the most common causes of overdose. But it is even more dangerous for the people who have no idea what they are taking. One afternoon this past winter, I sat down in Central Park in front of some of New York's wealthiest buildings with a drug dealer who was just willing to answer questions about his murky business. And think about innocent children, 18, 19, 17, 14-year-old children that don't have parents, come from a single parent home, and guess what? That parent ain't around, right? They're working, or they're trying to fulfill some sort of sexual fantasy, right? Because we're all selfish. I asked him if he ever cut other drugs into the drug he sold. Absolutely never, he insisted. He said he wants his customers to be safe in order to continue ordering from him. That's a good business plan, right? But he said he had heard of other dealers who took less care. As we sat in the park by Columbus Circle, I asked him where his work had taken him in the city. Everywhere, he said. In other words, everybody's buying his drugs. From the richest apartment to the Upper East Side, all the way downtown. Clearly, the city is one of the epicenters of America's drug crisis. But where a lot of our politicians and other leaders don't seem to realize is that this is not a drug crisis like earlier drug crisis. This is not people getting high on pot or dropping the odd pill. One that we seem almost to have gotten used to. The most lethal drug in the world are flowing into this country. As I show over the coming weeks, they have found this way across the U.S. drug supply. Fentanyl is everywhere. And while a lot of people have got used to it, there is no reason why they should. The fact that the New Yorkers are all advised to carry around Narcan say an awful lot about the state of this day. Country, state, people, it's everywhere. Oh, it's become so, no problem, here's Narcan. There is much more to say about some of the terrible human tragedies along the way. Tragedy, pain, suffering, that's why people are doing this. But in order to see where we're going in New York, we should also look at where the cities have gone. That's why next week I'll be looking at nearby cities. One of the places in America that have most fully fallen through the floor. It's a warning sign of what might happen across the rest of the country as well. Unless America wakes up and realizes that none of this is normal. And as we transition to the end of the video, please People love you, by the way. Regardless of what people say, people love you. People will miss you. Your friends will miss you. Your co-workers will miss you. Your parents, even though they may not be around, they will miss you. All right? Because have you not seen any funerals out there that when that person dies, people come out of nowhere to say their goodbyes, right? But you have to be willing to look at yourself and realize that you might be at fault for some of your problems. Maybe some people don't like you because of who you are or what you became, but you have to try to save yourself. You are the most important thing in this world, my friend. And I encourage you to share, like, and subscribe, because this is the real topics we talk about on this channel, because I made it through a lot of problems. And I'm here to show all of you that there is a way out, okay? And that way out is God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. I promise you that. And I will see you in another video.